Hello, hello.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Elysia.
And this is Burden of Proof.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the Heaven's Gate case.
Yeah.
It was very well received. I'm glad you loved it.
It was fun.
It was fun. I loved it.
You know.
Right.
It just always feels weird
To
saying
be like,
things like,
it's so fun.
it's so fun to talk about a mass suicide. No.
And
that part's not fun.
You know what we mean, okay? It's fun to say Elodie.
Yes. That was the fun part.
Yeah.
Was coming
that was
up with
definitely
people's
fun.
Heaven's Gate names.
Yes. For sure. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have nearly as much fun this week.
Afraid not.
Well, because the minute we say that we're going to Ohio, it's going to be bad.
Gotta love my home state.
These Ohio true crime cases are nothing.
Listen,
they're nothing good.
Ohio has some of the best people in the world and some of the worst people in the world.
Yeah, Anthony Soul. That was a toughie.
Yeah, this is pretty close up there.
Yeah, this might be worse. This is, I think, worse. I don't know.
It just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I know a little bit about this case. I don't know a lot about this case.
Okay. First, I want to give a shout out because this was actually listener requested.
Yes.
By
Amber.
I had mixed feelings about doing this, but I sucked it up and decided that a listener has spoken, so I should do it.
Yes.
So this, my friends, is about the monster of Cleveland.
The monster of Cleveland. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And you will find, despite what he says, he really was kind of a monster. So, here we go. Ariel Castro was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico on July 10th, 1960. He was the third born of 4 children, but in fact, he would have half-siblings as well after his father left the family for his mistress or second love or however you want to look at that. A short time later, his father left Puerto Rico with the new family, leaving Ariel's family behind, to look for more stable work in the industrial cities up north. When Ariel was 4 years old, his mother also left.
Oh.
She left.
Not good.
Well, she left for good reason, but still, that's a bit traumatizing to a kid, especially a young kid. She left her children with their grandmother, her mother, and moved to Reading, Pennsylvania for work as a seamstress.
Okay.
Yeah, Puerto Rico was beautiful. They talk about how, you could just pick fruit off trees and eat it directly, and it was so nice and green and lush, but there really wasn't work for people.
Right.
So, his mother would send money and gifts, but did not come back until 2 years later to collect them, if you will. During his time with his grandmother, he was allegedly sexually abused by an older boy in the neighborhood. However, no one was able to corroborate the story because he never told anyone until he was arrested for the horrific crimes he committed against 3 women. When Ariel was about 12 years old, his mother moved them from Pennsylvania to Cleveland, Ohio, to be closer to his estranged father. Based on Ariel's account, this was irrelevant as he professed he was abandoned by his father and accused his mother of abuse. In contradictory statements, though, he said his mother would often verbally abuse her children and discipline them by hitting them with sticks or belts, but then he turned around and said she did a good job raising them.
Okay.
So
he seems a little confused.
Despite the claims about his mother, he spent a lot of time with her as an adult. He lived just blocks away from her. He'd go over for dinner at least once a week. So to the outside world,
everything was peachy.
Everything looked well. Now, despite these family troubles, the Castro name was well known on the west side of Cleveland, as various members of the large family owned businesses throughout the tight-knit Puerto Rican community. So it was not just his father and his mother that moved there. His father had several brothers who also had moved to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Ariel wasn't particularly known for being violent through his teen years, but he did admit to being a bit controlling and aggressive with his middle school girlfriend. And he once shot a kid with a BB gun, which many thought was intentional because he was openly racist against Black people, and the kid was Black.
We're not off to a great start.
Otherwise, Ariel stayed out of trouble, and he became known for his musical talent. He played bass guitar with several bands throughout the years, often playing at clubs, special events, and even churches.
Okay.
Then, a year after graduating high school, he met Grimilda Figueroa. It's that name again that I always have trouble with. She and her family moved in across the street, having just arrived from Puerto Rico, and Ariel was instantly taken with the brunette beauty. However, Grimilda, who went by Milda, so I'll be calling her Milda from here on out,
I think that's best.
was just 17.
And how old is he?
And at this point, he was older. Like, he had just graduated high school the year before, but he was actually, I think he had just turned 20.
Yeah, okay.
So, understandably, her family was not thrilled.
No, that's a big difference between
They're like,
17
he's a
and
man.
20. Yeah.
You're still a teenager. But on their first official date, Ariel didn't do anything to help his case. He returned her several hours late. Like, she basically spent the entire night with him. They came home like in the middle of the night. Her mother was furious that her daughter's reputation was now ruined in their eyes because she spent a long time alone with the man, because they like went and parked by a lake or something. Yeah. So she, the mother, told Ariel, "You're now responsible for her."
I hate that. That's so, why would, no, you don't know this guy.
Yeah. So Milda moved in with Ariel and his family, but they did not marry at the time. Milda gave birth to their first son, Anthony, in 1981 when she was just 18 years old. So, let me just say, it is possible that the mom said you're responsible for her, like, after finding out she was pregnant, but that's not how it was portrayed in my sources, so I don't know for sure.
Right.
But she clearly, if she wasn't pregnant when she went to live with him, she got pregnant, like, shortly
Real
after.
quick, yeah.
Yeah. Her family did eventually warm up to Ariel and appreciated his fun-loving side, despite there being warning signs. He had become extremely controlling and possessive of Milda.
Where's the red flag guy?
Yeah, really. You know, all the early signs of abuse were there. Controlling what she wore, who she spent time with, where she went, etc. Eventually, he began hitting her, and her family was once again concerned, but Milda stayed. By the time they had their second child, Angie, in 1983, Ariel was locking their apartment door from the outside so that Milda and the kids could not leave while he was at work. He often worked a regular job during the day and would play with bands at night.
So they're just like consistently just stuck in the house.
Pretty much, unless he escorts them places. Even to see her family. Like, her family couldn't come visit her because they couldn't get in. And she couldn't go see them. So, yeah, it was bad. Some people describe it as she was his first prisoner.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the escalation is there for sure.
Absolutely. On a day in 1985, Ariel left the door unlocked, though.
Oh.
So Milda walked to the grocery store. She wasn't trying to leave him or leave. She just went to the grocery store. As she made her way to the second-story apartment with her arms full of grocery bags, Ariel leaped out at her, scaring her. She lost her footing and fell backwards down the entire flight of stairs.
Okay, I know that your dad wasn't there for you as a kid, but that's why your parents and your dad specifically tells you not to play around the stairs.
After an emergency surgery for her head injury, she told her sister that he intentionally did it because he was angry that she left the apartment.
For sure.
Milda wanted to leave him at that point, but didn't know how she could. Unfortunately, the abuse escalated and she went on to face several more trips to the hospital and to get dental surgery. He knocked out like a bunch of her teeth. Several male members of her family ganged up on Ariel and beat him before threatening that they would kill him if he ever touched her again. Because this is a Puerto Rican community, they were much quicker to be like, we'll handle this ourselves instead of calling the cops.
Well, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, especially the time and, their social, situation makes sense to me.
Ariel, when that happened, just stood up and smiled.
Oh, that's so terrifying. Where's the BB gun?
Her father's garage was burned down shortly after, and everyone suspected that he did it in retaliation.
Absolutely.
Needless to say, it also was not the last time that he assaulted Milda. Like any abusive relationship, though, there were some good times. The couple had gone on to have 2 more children, Emily and Arlene. Then in 1991, Ariel got a more stable day job through the public school system as a school bus driver. The look on your face.
Oh, wow. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that so much.
That's my number one reason for, go to the cops. Go to the cops. Because there's so many
no
people.
record that he has domestic violence abuse.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So, things were going well, and in 1992, Ariel purchased a house at 2207 Seymour Avenue from his uncle. I think they said it was just like $12,000, which was crazy.
My case takes place a little bit earlier. We're recording 2 episodes today, and they were shopping for houses in the $20,000 range.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say $20,000, not even enough to buy a car, much less a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So by this time, Ariel widened his scope of abuse, resorting to raping Milda and physically abusing their son as well. Milda was afraid to leave Ariel, but she would soon find she had to risk it. She had continued to have complicated medical issues from her fall down the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and his continued abuse did not help. In 1993, Milda was diagnosed with meningioma.
Meningioma.
Yeah, it's fun, but kind of difficult to roll off the
Meningioma.
tongue. It's a tumor that forms in the membrane surrounding the brain, and it is caused by traumatic injury.
Yeah.
She underwent surgery to remove it, and just a month afterwards, he beat her again when she was still recovering. That time, she called the police and reported it after he left the house.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back, he began beating her again in front of the kids. She fell to the floor, and he started stomping on her head. Then he saw their son, Anthony, run out the front door to try and get help. So he ran after Anthony, but luckily, the police pulled up and stopped him. He was arrested, and Milda was finally ready to stand up for herself.
That's not just abuse. That's attempted murder.
You could say that.
I can and I will, because it's true.
So she was prepared. She couldn't really give a statement at the scene because he had literally stomped on her head. But the next day, after she got some medical attention, she gave a full statement. She was ready to go. She was ready to do this. Until he both threatened and bribed her all at the same time in front of the courthouse stairs the day that she was supposed to testify in court. On February 9th, 1994, they failed to indict him because her testimony was
that's the case.
The case.
Yeah.
That is the case. Still, Milda eventually got away from Ariel in 1996 with the help of a security guard at the hospital where she often went for care after the beatings. He basically was like, leave this guy.
Yeah.
Multiple times when he saw her. And she kept saying, I can't. I don't know how. Where will I go? What will I do? Like so many women
Mhm.
have trouble. I don't think she drove. I don't even know that she graduated high school. Like,
Yeah, what
she
do you
was
do?
really stuck. She had no work. Like, she was expected to stay at home, so she had no work experience. And finally, that guy said, "What if I help you?"
Mm-hmm.
And he helped her. And then that was a whole thing. But we're not here to talk about the rest of Milda's story, so look it up because you will find stuff.
Okay.
So, custody of the children was a long battle, but she eventually gained sole custody.
Okay, good.
In 2000, Ariel met his next love, Lillian Roldan. Lillian fell for his charm, despite the fact that he was nearly twice her age. And everything.
So he was born in 1960.
Yes.
We're in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So she's what, 15?
No, we're in 2000.
Oh. Okay,
No,
so she's 20. I was like,
yeah, she was about 20. She was almost this. She was the same age. Or like only a couple years older than his kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, you did very clearly say we were in 2000 because I remember going, we're living in the year 3000. And I just completely disregarded it after that. I said, in and out.
So everything seemed normal. It was good. They dated. He met her family. She spent the night at his house. It was good. There was just one odd thing that she noticed, and that was that he kept his basement door padlocked. So she asked him, and he told her that he kept a lot of cash in the basement, and so he wants to make sure it's secured. She believed him.
Yeah, I mean, what is she supposed to say?
Yeah. They continued dating for 2 years. Everything was good. But then suddenly in 2002, Ariel sent her a letter explaining that he loved her, but not enough to continue the relationship. But if she ever needed anything, just call him. He'll help.
Okay. That's one of those things you look at. You get the letter, you're looking at it, you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Like,
yeah.
They weren't living together? No?
No.
Okay. So,
not living together.
Right. So,
but things were going well.
So that's weird.
Well, the truth was,
I say it's almost as weird as that padlocked door down there.
Mm-hmm. The truth was he was unable to keep up with the double life that he had created. The truth was he couldn't risk Lillian finding out what, or rather, who was actually in his basement. So take a breath, hold on to your butt.
I dropped my pillow. Hold on, we needed that brevity because this is about to get so real.
Yeah.
Fasten your seatbelt, slut puppy.
Yep.
It's the birthday card I got for Elysia. So I'm not just saying that. I'm not just calling her a slut puppy.
It's okay. Okay. On August 23rd, 2002, Ariel had taken the first of 3 women whom he held captive for years. Michelle Knight grew up on the west side of Cleveland under very difficult circumstances. At one point, her family was living out of their car, and even once they found an affordable home to rent, they could not afford what most of us would consider basic necessities.
Mm-hmm.
She says that she would cook meals for herself and her siblings on a space heater because they had no stove. And for anyone wondering, she says it takes 4 hours for a hot dog to cook all the way through. So she had a plan.
Yeah.
As the eldest, she was tasked with caring for her siblings, and she took it in stride as she loves kids and very much wanted them to feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
When she was very much a kid herself still, probably no more than 12, she helped deliver her youngest sibling at home. At the best moments, Michelle was neglected by the adults in her family, and at the worst, she was both verbally and sexually abused. At 14 years old, she ran away and lived on the streets for a time, sleeping under park benches and even a trash can. At less than 5 feet tall, she was able to curl up in the can and sleep without worrying that anybody would see her or bother her. She eventually connected with a local Baptist church and found out that they offered meals every day at 2 p.m. So she began regularly going. An extended family member saw her there and called her dad, who came immediately and forced her to go back home. And so she also went back to high school. Regularly bullied at school, she was no doubt vulnerable. So, not surprisingly, she began a sexual relationship with an older boy who showed her the slightest bit of kindness or interest. She ended up pregnant, but was determined to be the best mom possible. Now, flash forward a bit to 2002. Michelle is 21 years old. She has her son to take care of, and she's trying to get things together to become more independent. So she goes out to apply for jobs, and she leaves her son with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
The mother's boyfriend was drinking, and under unknown circumstances, he grabbed Michelle's son by the leg and fractured the little boy's knee. Michelle did what she was supposed to do. She took him to the hospital, and social services was called.
Right.
Her son was placed in foster care under the agreement that Michelle would get to take him home when she could get yourself together, get a stable environment. So on August 23rd, 2002, Michelle was on her way to attend a case management meeting for her son. She got lost trying to find her way there, and she tried to call the case manager from a payphone but got no answer. So she walked across the street to a Family Dollar store, hoping the clerk would know the way. Ariel Castro was in the store and overheard Michelle asking for directions. He claimed to know the way and offered her a ride. She realized this is not a total stranger.
Mm-hmm.
She quickly recognized him as the father of one of her friends. Now, in my sources, it's never said which one of his daughters that Michelle was friends with, but I think based on age, I think it was probably his oldest daughter, Angie. Okay. But she says, I recognize him.
Right.
He's my friend's dad.
Right. And I mean, I'm thinking, you said that, and I start thinking about all of my friends' fathers that I would be like, oh, it's Mr. Castro. So.
Yeah. And even if you haven't spent a ton of time,
right,
it's totally normal to think, well, my friend seems normal. Everybody seems like
right.
You're their dad. So, yeah. And she was desperate to get to the meeting because that shows that by her not going, it's like they look at that like, well, you're not trying to get your son back. So desperate to get to the meeting, she gets into his truck. Like I said, despite not thinking about the fact that, okay, I know your daughter, but I don't really know you. As he starts driving, they talked about his daughter, and he suddenly claimed that he needed to stop by his house. Like, it's close by. I just need to stop by there and pick something up. And Michelle thought, okay, I don't have a lot of time, but like, this is my only chance to get to my meeting. So she was like, okay. Once they arrived, Ariel got out and went inside while Michelle waited in the backyard by the truck. I'm assuming she just got out of the truck because it was a hot summer day and who knows. But she's standing there and he suddenly came back out and asked also very much puppy for her son. I'm pausing there because I know we're all going to have that feeling of like, no shit, really? Like, really? This is how this happened. She clearly had a naive streak in her.
Right.
And even after the fact, you see that she wants to see the best in the world in general. That's just her nature. He claimed that they had a dog that just had puppies, and he invited her in to see the puppies. When Michelle entered the house, he then told her that the puppies were upstairs, I think in a closet or something, which isn't unusual.
That's normal for when, your pet gives birth, unless you have like
a special spot, you know. Yeah. So she followed him up the stairs stepped into the bedroom that he had opened the door to, and he came in behind her and closed the door and said, "You're not going to leave for a long time." And then he began undressing. He threatened to kill her if she screamed and proceeded to tie her up with an extension cords and taped a sock into her mouth. After the initial rape, he moved her to the basement where he chained both her arms and her waist to a pole. He placed a full-face motorcycle helmet that had been blacked out on her so that she couldn't really see, just to disorient her. He would use threats and beatings to keep her quiet when he was home, and when he left, he would turn a radio on at full volume to both drown her out and drown out any other noises so she couldn't hear what was going on.
Right.
Ariel occasionally brought her food and let her shower, but would sexually assault her as many as 5 times a day. And he had a tendency to beat her anytime she angered him. She also got pregnant quite easily. Michelle says that she was pregnant multiple times throughout her captivity, but Ariel found multiple ways to terminate them, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later. Once he thought he could trust her to not cause too much of a commotion, Ariel did remove the helmet and allow her to watch TV. And once he'd ended his relationship with Lillian, the girlfriend, he even moved Michelle to one of the bedrooms where he had taken the closet door and boarded up the window. And then he chained her to the radiator and locked the bedroom door from the outside. Unfortunately, Michelle's family did very little to look for her. They may have filed an initial report, but literally never followed up with police.
That's insane.
Yep. There was literally no one looking for this poor young woman. Not even social services, apparently. They must have just thought, well, she dipped. 8 months later, on April 21st, 2003, Ariel preyed upon his next victim. Amanda Berry grew up under better circumstances than Michelle, but like many families, they had their troubles. Her parents were barely teenagers when they met. By the time they were 16, Johnny Ray Berry had dropped out of high school and did little else but party. And Luana was pregnant with Amanda's older sister, Beth. 7 years later, Amanda came along, but very little was different. Johnny Ray worked for a moving company during the day and drank at night. When he wasn't in jail for assault charges, that is. Luana worked a variety of minimum wage jobs to barely make ends meet, and pretty much she raised their daughters. Johnny he was originally from Tennessee, and I'm not sure exactly how old Amanda was when he left, but at some point he left and went back to Tennessee. He remained in contact with them, but I don't know how involved he really was in their lives. April 21st, 2003 was the day before Amanda's 17th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Like any 16-year-old, she begrudgingly put on her work uniform and headed out for her shift at Burger King. It was a mere 10-minute walk from home, and she arrived right on time. A few hours into her shift, they asked if she'd like to go home early because they were slow. And she had big plans for her birthday the next day, so she was like, yeah,
Of course
I could use the extra time to myself to plan. There was just one problem. Luana did not want her walking home once it was getting dark, but she and Amanda's sister were not yet off work to come give her a ride. So Amanda stayed there for several minutes trying to call her boyfriend DJ. She called 2 or 3 times, but he never answered. So she waited another 15 minutes to see if he would call back or show up, and he didn't. So she decided she would walk anyway because it was still technically light outside. It was dusk, So she left around 7:30, and according to my internet search, sunset that evening in Cleveland was at 8:13.
Okay.
And it's just like a 10-minute walk.
Yeah,
so
she had time. Educated decision was made.
Yeah.
Based on the rules she was given.
Yes.
You know?
As she was walking, her sister called to let her know that they were leaving work because her sister and mom worked at the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we'll come pick you up. And she said, it's okay. I'm already walking. But she stays on the phone. And as she's walking and talking, she sees an older maroon van pull into a driveway ahead of her and kind of like block the sidewalk. Still on the phone as she approached, she noticed that there was a girl in the passenger seat that looked familiar to her. And she thought, I think maybe she worked at Burger King with me or something. But she, it was starting to it was dusk and windows and who knows. So I don't think she got a full look, and she's talking to her sister at the same time. So she's distracted. But as she gets closer, she walks around the front of the van. And as she passes, she looks, and the man driving smiles at her, and she smiles back and keeps walking. She continued talking to her sister until, she gets a ways down, and then all of a sudden, that van pulls up alongside of her and asks if she needs a ride. Being distracted on the phone, she just says yes, and she doesn't think about the fact that the girl is no longer in that front seat.
Okay.
And she just nod yes, gets in the car, and tells her sister as she's sitting in the front seat, yeah, it's okay. I got a ride. I'll be home in just a few minutes. And then she realizes, I think maybe she thought that the girl had gotten in the back because they were offering her a ride. And then she realizes, as she gets in, hangs up the phone, that she recognizes the driver as well. But she can't remember exactly who he is. But she thinks, well, you've got to be that girl's father. So she eventually realizes, oh, wait, that girl's not in here. So she says, where's your daughter? But instead of answering, he says, so you work at Burger King, huh? And she's thinking, well, duh, I'm in a Burger King uniform.
No, I just wear this for fun.
He then told her that his son used to work there and asked if she knew Anthony Castro. And she then realized, yes, I do know Anthony Castro.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you look familiar. And the girl was one of his other daughters that looked similar to her sister, but she actually knew his oldest daughter as well.
Right. So that's why she was like, you look kind of familiar.
Yes. So then she feels a little more comfortable because she's like, oh, no, I do know this family. Right. I do know
and
them.
Again, I really don't blame them for thinking, oh, well, this is my friend's dad. This is a safe thing. You're taught. So,
yes.
Trust your father, trust your mother. And then by extension, parents in general are trustworthy to you and adults in general. And so that's not, especially when you're a teenager and you spend so much time with your friends and at other people's houses, it all kind of,
Yep.
It makes sense to me, unfortunately.
There was an added layer. Actually, not only did she know Anthony, his son, but her mother, Luana, knew Anthony as well.
Right. So.
And then, like I said, she realized, oh, I didn't know that must be another daughter, but I went to middle school with your older daughter, Angie. And she asked how Angie was. And he said, oh, she's good. Actually, she's at my house right now. You want to go say hi? And she agreed, thinking, why not? It'd been a long time since she had seen Angie, and she had the extra time since she got off work early. So during the drive, they continued to talk about his kids. And he takes this short drive, out of that neighborhood, past the interstate, and into a neighborhood that Amanda was actually also familiar with. It's known as Little Puerto Rico, only about a 10-minute drive from her home.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually had cousins that lived in that neighborhood. So, again, she's like familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
She's not freaking out yet. He pulled into the back of the driveway where there was a large dog barking. And At some point on the drive, he like said like cool cell phone or something. So before he gets out of the car or the van, he says, yeah, can I see that's cool cell phone? He brings it up again and he's like, can I see that? And she's like, yeah, sure. And then the dog's barking. So he's like, you know what? Let me grab the dog so you can get out. I'll hold the dog back. And he takes the cell phone with him. They go into the house, which she notes is extremely messy. You go in the back door. The description of it sounds like you walk into like a landing. The basement door is on one side, and then you enter the kitchen to the other side. And off the kitchen, there's another room that's a bathroom. It's actually a bathroom because this is an older house. It's like early 1900s house. The bathroom is just off the kitchen, but the door is shut. He points to that door and says, oh, Angie must be in there taking a bath. So he says, you know what? Why don't I show you around while Angie's in there and you wait? And she's like, okay. So he starts showing her around. And as they go up the stairs and she reaches the top landing, she began to feel uneasy because she said it was very dark upstairs and all of the bedroom doors were closed. Ariel pointed to one of the doors and said, my roommate is probably sleeping in there. And then he tells her to take a look and points where there's a hole where the doorknob is supposed to be.
Oh, gosh.
And it's missing. And she thinks, it's weird, but like...
I don't want to look at your sleeping roommate.
Yeah, but she does because she's like, I don't want to like call this dude weird. She has a face. So she looks through real quick to see a young woman sleeping or at least laying down and the TV is on. He then shows her the master bedroom, followed by a third smaller bedroom. But when she turned around to go back out, he blocked the door. He demanded she pull her pants down, and she began shouting no, and she cried for him to take her home. She didn't understand how he could do such a thing, because she still believes that his daughter is downstairs. And there's another woman in the room right next door. Suddenly, his manner grew angry, and he told her again. As he prepared himself to sexually assault her, he glanced out the window and made it a point to let her know that there were cops just outside. So if she drew attention, he would kill her. And she glanced over and saw there were police lights right out on the street. When he was done assaulting her, his demeanor changed right back into the cheerful one he had during the drive. He told her he was going to take her home, and she got up and scrambled to get dressed. But as they approached the door, he suddenly turned back around and demanded that she take off her pants again and get on the bed. Amanda began screaming for help and ran to the next bedroom trying to get away, but found herself trapped again. He raped her again, and then he again claimed he was going to take her home. But he tells her, I have to tape your mouth so that you'll be quiet until we get there. So he taped her hands, her feet, her mouth, and he placed a full-face motorcycle helmet on her, claiming that he's only doing it so he can carry her to the van and then get her home quietly. However, he instead takes her to the basement, where, just like he did Michelle Knight, he locked Amanda in the chains attached to the pole, took off the helmet, and placed a small black and white TV in front of her. He calmly told her to be quiet and not to try and get out. Regardless, she managed to get the tape off her mouth. She was able to move her hands enough to get the tape off her mouth, and she began screaming for help. She then worked on chewing the tape around her wrists until her hands were free, so then she could pick the tape off of her ankles. It was all kind of for nothing, though, because she still was chained around her waist and unable to get free. She eventually fell asleep and awoke to a friendly Ariel who brought her breakfast and offered her a shower. He got in the shower with her and creepily washed her.
Ugh.
And she thought he was going to sexually assault her again, but instead he got out and found Band-Aids and gave her Band-Aids for her fingers, which were all bloody and raw and cracked from picking at the tape and stuff. Then he took her out to like the dining room or the living room or something, and he allowed her to eat her breakfast. And they just kind of sat there for a little bit until he suddenly said, "Let's go upstairs." He assaulted her once again and then told her to lay down and relax. And he lied next to her for at least an hour, sleeping, until he suddenly said, "Okay, let's go back downstairs."
I'm getting whiplash.
Yes. Ariel then chained her back to the pole in the basement. When she began screaming for help again, he just looked at her and turned the TV up louder. As he walked away, leaving her in the deafening darkness, if they didn't have the helmet on especially, he would always turn all the lights off. So they're just in a dark, damp, gross basement. But as he walked away and left her in the darkness, she realized it was her 17th birthday.
I'm gonna cry.
I warned you.
Yeah, she did. She did text me last night and say, bring tissues.
By day 4, Ariel moved Amanda up to the bedroom that he first raped her in. The only improvement in conditions, though, was a mattress.
Yeah.
Not a nice one, not a clean one, not one with sheets, but there was a mattress. She was still chained and only had enough leeway to use a small trash can nearby, like a freaking chamber pot.
That's disgusting.
Ariel was kind enough to wrap socks around the chains so they would stop digging into her skin so much. But Amanda says in their book that they wrote, which is listed in our show notes, that she thinks he only did that so she'd stop complaining about it.
Right.
He also gave her a journal to write in, which she used as if she were writing letters to her family, and to track what he did to her every day in case she ever got out.
Smart girl.
Initially, she sort of used a code for how many times he would rape her each day. Because initially, she wasn't sure if he was going to be like checking the journal. So she used just a number and then times, or X. It usually was 3x, 4x, 5x. Based on my sources, it seems as though he was overall more humane to Amanda than he had ever been to Michelle. Like, I don't know that he gave Michelle anything.
And Michelle's still there.
And Michelle is still there. Amanda was also fortunate enough to have people who cared that she went missing. When her mom, Luana, and her sister, Beth, arrived home from work that evening that she was taken, they were instantly concerned that Amanda wasn't home. After all, she said, "I have a ride. I'll be there in just a few minutes." There was no evidence that she had been home and then left again either. They knew she always immediately showered after work so she didn't smell like Burger King.
Right.
So even if her ride had been her boyfriend and they were going to spend time together, they knew, nope, she would have insisted on coming home and showering before they went back out.
Right. Is the soap wet in the shower?
Yeah, that's what they told police. I checked the shower. It was dry. After checking around with some friends, Luana called the police to report Amanda missing. And they told her, it's really too soon. She's 17. She's only been missing a couple hours, or like an hour or so. She's probably just out with somebody and she'll be home by curfew. So Luana waited until midnight and called again. 2 officers were dispatched to take statements and file the report. They too said, "Oh, she's likely just breaking the rules, out with friends, unless you think she might have run away." Luana was insistent, telling them she's got to be still in her Burger King uniform. There's no evidence that she ever came home. And she showed them her room and like said, all of her stuff is still here. Her box of saved cash that she's been saving up is still here. And she asked, what teenager do you know that runs away with no personal items or the $100 that they've been saving up?
Right.
Luana then connected with several news channels to get the story in the news and even gave her personal phone number so no possible witnesses or tips would slip through the cracks.
Yep, she said, call me.
Mm-hmm. About a week after she went missing, Ariel called Luana from Amanda's cell phone.
Holy.
He said, Amanda's okay. She wanted to come with me. She's my wife now.
No, she's not. No, she's not. No.
Yeah.
She's not. She's 17 years old. She's not your wife.
Luana tried to keep him on the phone, asking for any proof of life. Like, let me talk to her. Just have her say something. I want proof that she's okay. He just hung up.
Why would he call her? I don't understand.
Because he would always let them watch TV so they could see the news reports.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he wanted that to stop.
He, I think, just either wanted it to stop or it's like some sick, twisted, he wanted to be like, yeah, no, she's okay. Like, I have her, you're not going to find her kind of thing.
Right.
We're not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
The missing persons report had been passed to a detective, of course. And that detective had a much better attitude than the officers. And they understood. Luana was right. Amanda was not a runaway, and she could possibly still be alive. I mean, he could be telling the truth. They know that, like, statistically, probably not, but, like, he could be telling the truth because what would he have to gain to say?
Right.
No, she's still alive. I have her. So while police worked on tracking the area that the cell phone was in, which included sitting in an unmarked vehicle in the same Family Dollar parking lot that he took Michelle Knight from. That's how, like, close.
Yeah,
I just want to, like...
That's insane.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Luana once again updated the public through a news report. And there was one reporter in particular that felt moved by the case to the point that he stayed in regular contact with Luana and promised her, I will get Amanda's picture in that story as much as I possibly can on the news. Anytime there's an update, anytime we can talk about it and get Amanda's picture out there, absolutely we will. And if he couldn't, like if he tried to and couldn't because the higher up said, no, we have other things to report, she would immediately call him and be like, where's her picture? I didn't see her picture. She was mama bear.
Yeah.
Like through and through. And this actually is the number one thing that gave Amanda hope, is that she saw on the nightly news, my family is doing everything they can looking for me. Like any investigation, though, some of the tips they received were not only useless, but pointed in the completely wrong direction.
Right.
Someone said they thought they saw her getting into a white sedan, and DJ, Amanda's boyfriend, who her mother did not care for, by the way, drove a white sedan. So DJ was also kind of a punk.
I mean, he's a teenager.
Actually, he's a little older than Amanda, and I believe he, like, dealt marijuana or something. Anyway.
Not the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, he's the devil's lettuce, but actually I was like, okay, well, I mean, he's not great, but, like, there's a difference between just being kind of a punk and being, like, a kidnapper. So,
right.
You know, but he was a punk in the sense also that he wasn't cooperative with police. They had to bug his car to get any kind of information, and they started following him and stuff.
All right, DJ.
Which, A, wasn't helpful for his case, like, just to be like, no, I'm innocent. Right. I didn't do anything. But B, they overheard him talking to one of his friends who asked about Amanda. Like, so what do you think happened to her? And he was like, I don't know. I don't care. What the fuck, man?
That's not cool.
So clearly you weren't a swell guy to her.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. And they hadn't been dating very long. So.
But I mean, I don't think it matters. I feel like if anybody goes missing.
Oh, yeah, no. I that wasn't
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. So, not a fan of DJ, but he was not the kidnapper. So it was a waste of time.
Right.
Another issue they ran into was a young woman in the area who was a sex worker, and she looked eerily similar to Amanda.
A doppelganger, perhaps.
Yeah. So there was like multiple people who kept calling in sightings of her.
Wow.
To the point that the FBI agents working on the case had to give her a certified letter confirming I am not Amanda Berry.
Yeah.
So that when other officers and people would stop her, she could just like pull it out and be like, listen.
She's like, I don't mean to be persnickety, but listen here. Yeah. I have a notarized letter.
Yes.
That says I am not who you're looking for.
Correct.
I mean, at least people were stopping her and looking, I guess, and saying.
Yeah. I mean, the whole community, it was wild. And I think that's all Luana's doing because she would not give up.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda could do nothing but watch from her prison and pray that they would not give up. And they didn't. Like, not just for a short time. Luana kept prodding.
Good.
For a long time. At this point, police began canvassing the neighborhoods within a short distance from the cell phone tower that they picked up that connected to, or that Amanda's phone had pinged from. The problem was that no one in the area would have necessarily suspected Ariel.
Right. They had, I guess, no real reason.
He was pretty well known in the community. The whole Castro family was. Between his family connections, music connections, and his day job as a school bus driver.
Right.
Other than his ex Milda, the man who helped her get away from him, and maybe his children, but I don't know that even his children would turn on him at that point or like suspect him of such a horrific thing, you know? Everyone else pretty much was like, oh, he's an okay guy. Like, he's a pretty good guy. He's been described as friendly, outgoing, talented, kind. Though,
yeah, I mean, it's been in the back of my head that I don't feel like we have a reason for such a such insane behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no lead up, really. It's really strange.
Hold that thought, because I have a theory on it, and I think you'll come to one too.
Okay.
Once you hear the whole thing. There was some people that were kind of close to him, like bandmates and stuff, that did see that he had a bit of a temper, but they didn't. It wasn't like an explosive temper necessarily.
Right. It wasn't like a scary thing for most of them. They were just like, oh gosh, he's a bit much.
I mean, it was like maybe people viewed him as a little bit difficult at times, and like didn't really want to spend a ton of time with him, but not like, oh, he's a monster holding women hostage in his house level of anger. Okay. There was one person, though. One person that was fascinated by Ariel's peculiar behavior or actions.
Okay.
His next door neighbor, Charles Ramsey, a black man living in the predominantly Puerto Rican neighborhood.
Okay.
Charles says that he became fascinated with Ariel because he noticed when Ariel started boarding up all the upstairs windows.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And he could sometimes hear the really loud music coming from the house, even though Ariel appeared to not be home. He said he once asked another neighbor who was like on friendlier terms with Ariel, like had talked to Ariel and stuff. He asked this guy, you know, what's his deal? Yeah, it's the middle of summer. We're all outside, have our windows open, air conditioning. He's like, half or more of his windows are boarded up and he has no air conditioning. It's got to be like sweltering in there. The other neighbor just said, Ariel's Puerto Rican. He's used to the heat.
He hasn't lived in Puerto Rico since he was like 5 or 6.
Yeah. And then Charles was like, you're Puerto Rican.
You have air conditioning.
And you have air conditioning or windows open.
Right.
So what's that got to do with anything?
Yeah.
And then the neighbor just looked at him and said, you ask too many questions. You should mind your business.
I mean, that's fair, but also your neighbors are really important to, like, neighborhoods and communities are vital to your safety. I mean, I live in an area of town that some people say isn't great. I think it's fine. Yep. But I have 2 neighbors on either side of me who take really good care of us, and they really watch out for me because you guys know my fiance works in healthcare, so he works long hours and he works late nights. And so if I didn't have those neighbors, I would be more nervous about where I live. But I know that anytime I need anything, I could knock on any door and get help.
Yeah.
And part of that is because one of our neighbors watches everything all the time. He is a nosy Nelly.
Yeah.
And he knows everything. But that's good because when there are weird things happening, I can say, hey, why is this weird thing happening? I understand people saying mind your business, but at the same time,
no, you
have to rely on people around you sometimes.
Exactly.
People need to be observant.
Yes. Agreed. Even if you're not going to be
like friendly,
super friendly or get to know your neighbors, like that's how we are. Like because we live in an area that, you know, we don't agree on all the divisive things that are happening in our country, but like we're friendly in the sense that we occasionally talk to them, we wave to them, and I absolutely will keep an eye on your house. Right. Not like creepily so, but like if I notice something weird happening, I'm gonna let you know. That's just neighborly. That's being neighborly.
It's part of living in a community. You have to do that.
And I think that's all Charles was trying to do in a sense, but he didn't feel comfortable being like, hey, dude, going directly to Ariel and being like, hey, dude.
Right. Well, I'm glad because Ariel he's already said he's openly racist towards black people.
Yes, exactly.
So he's definitely probably like, I don't know. I'm not going to go talk to him. He might shoot me with a BB gun or a gun.
Yeah, exactly. But all that being said, I don't even know that Charles suspected that anything that crazy was going on. Well, he just thought that's really unusual.
I wouldn't have thought that either. I would have been like, well, he's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's it. I
will now.
Yeah. That canvas that the police were doing really turned up very little to nothing.
Well, right, because they don't really have any reason to suspect him, and like there's
Then flash forward a year later, a year after Amanda's disappearance,
which is a year and 8 months after Michelle's.
Yes. And everyone's fear came true. Another girl from Cleveland's West Side went missing. Gina DeJesus was a beautiful, shy but full of life 14-year-old.
Holy shit.
The only thing she really had in common with Michelle and Amanda was that her family too struggled financially. Otherwise, she had a very secure and loving upbringing in a large and, according to her, noisy Puerto Rican family. But they were extremely close. Though Gina is different than most of her family because she's quiet, more reserved, and not as physically affected. And these are her words. just so you know, like Alicia's
like, I'm not passing judgment.
This is not, and I'm definitely not judging her for the physical affection thing because I too have sensory issues, so I don't like a lot of touchy-feely stuff.
We've hugged once in the 2.5 years we've known each other. So.
Yeah, that's what Gina says. Like, I know my family loves me and I love them very much, but I never quite fit in because I'm more like my dad. We tend to be shy, quiet. And she's like, and everybody in my family is very physically affectionate and touching and hugging all the time. And I don't really like it because I don't like to be touched all the time like that. I was like, girl, yes, I feel you.
Same.
So her parents had done everything they could to teach their daughter to be safe, aware of her surroundings, and to stay away from strangers. Because that's what parents do.
Right.
Parents don't tell you, don't trust the people that we know either.
Right.
She had a good head on her shoulders, and despite having a mild learning disability, she was having a great year academically and was looking forward to the following year because her teacher informed her that if she continued doing that well, she could actually move up into regular classes.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
On April 2nd, 2004, her father, Felix, drove her to school in the morning as usual, and she says that she typically would either take the city bus home or walk home in the afternoons because he would still be at work and her mother did not drive.
Okay.
Her mother, Nancy, though, was always nervous about that, nervous about her walking home especially, and would tell her to only walk or try to only walk if she had someone to walk with.
That's fair, because that's how Nicholas and I met, is I was walking home and my parents were like, I don't like it. Can you try and find rides?
Yeah.
And then I did the thing you shouldn't do, and I got into a car with a guy I didn't know, but it's fine. I took a picture of his license, and I sent it to my mom first, and so we were fine.
And you guys had mutual friends.
We had one mutual friend that it was really flaky. She wasn't a great friend, but like she had been giving me rides home, and all of a sudden she's like, I can't, but this guy can. Like I said, this was not a smart thing.
Not a smart thing.
But I did take a picture of his license and I sent it to my mom and I said, this guy's driving me home. And she said, okay, what am I going to do about it? You're already home. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It's fine though.
It's fine though.
But don't do that, please.
You're getting married next year. So
yeah.
It worked out.
It worked out, but don't do that.
Yeah. But
my parents were worried about it too. And they said, please try and find rides rather than walking home.
Yes, absolutely. On that day, though, Gina was feeling extra hungry at lunch, so she actually spent too much of her money on like an extra snack or something, which meant she couldn't take the bus. She wasn't going to have enough money for the bus. So as she left school, she saw her good friend, Ariel Castro, Ariel's daughter, walking as she did, and they kind of walked the same way home up to a certain point, and then they'd split off. So she started walking with her, and the two girls discussed going skating that evening. But Gina recalled that she was still grounded from going out. She had gotten into some trouble like the week before or something. But she thought, I think my parents would be okay with you coming over to my house. So they stopped at a payphone so Arlene could call her mom, Milda. Milda said, no, you cannot walk home with Gina, not today, for whatever reason. Okay, so the girls were disappointed, but rules are rules. And so from that payphone, they went their separate ways. Gina got only about a block from the payphone around the corner, and Ariel pulled up asking if she had seen Arlene. And she told him, yes, she just went that way. And she pointed in the opposite direction that he was facing. He then asked her, well, can you help me find her? And Gina said, but she just went that way. Like a minute ago.
5 seconds ago.
Yeah, like less than a minute ago. It shouldn't be hard to find her. And for whatever reason, he asked again. Yeah, but can you help me find her? So Gina's thinking, well, this is kind of weird, but she knows him. He's Arlene's dad. Not only is he Arlene's dad, he went to high school with her mother. Her father bought a car from him. And just a few months before that, their families had spent an entire evening at a school event hanging out together.
Right. Like, she knows this guy.
So in her case, she really did think, no, I know this guy. So she hopped in the car and he began driving, continued going in the direction he was facing. And she's like, why didn't you turn around? Like, she went that way. And he told her, oh, I just need to go up the street to my house first to grab some money. Gina felt nervous, but talked herself out of it, thinking, probably no big deal. My parents know him. He's Arlene's dad, etc. He mostly talked about his kids as he drove, and as he turned on to Seymour Avenue, Gina actually, again, just like Amanda, felt slightly more relieved because she knew the actual street. Her aunt lived just a couple blocks away.
It's terrifying.
Ariel pulled into the back of the driveway and hopped out of the car, saying he'd be right back. A minute later, he was back asking if she could help him carry a large speaker out to the car. She knows he's a musician, he might have a gig, whatever. Right. So she's like, okay. So she followed him inside the house. She grew increasingly uncomfortable when he told her, like, take off your coat, have a seat at this, like, makeshift kitchen table. Because she sat down and he went into the bathroom right off the kitchen. And he left the door open and she looks and he's, like, primping himself in the mirror. So she told him, you need to take me home now. My mom is waiting on me. He said nothing. He walked over to her, stood really close, and just reached out and tried to grab her breast. Savannah's covering her boob.
No.
Gina jumped up and yelled, "What are you doing? I want to get out of here." And he told her, okay, you can go, but you can't go out the same way you came in. You have to go out through that door. And he pointed to the door just to the left or whatever of the door she came in. That door led to the basement.
I was going to say, that's the basement door, isn't it?
Out of fear and confusion, she actually listened to him and then instantly knew it was a mistake as she, like, stepped on the first stair, but he was right behind her, blocking the way. The next thing she knew, she was down on the filthy floor and he was on top of her. Gina put up a fight, though, screaming and kicking, but he was too heavy. She could not get free. He threatened her with a pipe that was nearby. And when that didn't work, he told her he was going to have to chain her up. So for a moment, she stopped, put her arms out or whatever on the ground, and told him, go ahead. As soon as he got up off of her to grab the chain, she jumped up and ran towards the stairs. But he caught her before she made it to, like, the second or third stair. He pulled her back to the bowl and placed a chain around her neck and another around her waist. He then pushed her to the floor and tied her hands behind the pole with plastic rope and warned her that it's plastic, it'll cut, so don't move. He picked up a filthy rag from the floor and shoved it into her mouth and then taped over it. Strangely, he did not rape her. He just stood over her and masturbated.
Oh my gosh.
Then he walked upstairs without saying a word.
Ugh.
After a few minutes, he was back with a radio, which he turned on full volume and then left again. The next morning, he brought Gina a TV. He yanked the tape off her mouth, and she screamed in pain. He warned her if she continued, he would keep her mouth stuffed and taped. Gina believed there was no way he was going to let her go because she knew who he was. But she was terrified as to what he'd do with her. Right then, all he did was take the chain off her neck, grabbed her chest, then turned around, went back upstairs, turned the light off.
Do you think he's just, like, tired of it?
No. I think that it's either because he knows her better or because she was younger.
That's kind of what I was, I
think he was, I think out of all of them, he was more conflicted about taking her, but he had planned it, which that's my next note. She began thinking through everything and she wondered, did he plan this? Because she realized that she would often see him parked somewhere on a street that she had to walk home, like as she's walking home from school, or he would drive by and he would always smile and wave at her. So she began thinking, like, this was planned.
Yeah, he thought this through. Because at first I was like, well, that was impulsive of him because clearly he's not is interested. Not like in a weird way, but just like she's so much younger than the other girls. And
I think that's all it was. He seems to ease her into that portion of his abuse and grossness, we'll say. So Ariel left Gina chained to that pole, both a radio and TV blaring.
Oh, that's so overstimulating.
On the hard, cold basement floor without allowing her to use the bathroom, eat, or drink for more than 24 hours. He finally brought her a plate of rice and beans that were left over from dinner with his mother.
Ugh.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
So he's so thoughtful.
Yeah. Despite her hunger, she refused to eat. He told her he didn't care if she starved, and he took the plate back upstairs. Hours later, like a few hours later, he came back with a bag of McDonald's, and then he walked her upstairs. He allowed her to use the bathroom, but watched her the entire time. Wouldn't let her close the door. He then walked her to the dining room area. Let me back up. Obviously, she did eat the McDonald's. Okay, just to be clear.
Yeah.
By that time, she got so hungry that she was like, I couldn't help it. Like, I needed to eat something. So she did eat the McDonald's. She uses the bathroom. He walks her into the dining room area where he had a mattress and like a strange setup where it was some kind of box. I don't know if it was cardboard. Like, she doesn't describe what it was made from. There's some sort of box like that was over top of the mattress. And then there was the chain was to go around her ankle. She was chained by her ankle and then told to lay inside the box. And then he crawled in the box with her and he laid next to her. And she said it was very like claustrophobic. And he just caressed her chest until he fell asleep. I think the purpose of the box was to force her to lay close to him so that she couldn't move without, there was no way she could move without him knowing, So I think that's what the purpose of the box was. I'm not really sure.
Well, there's not a lot of logic going on here.
When Gina went missing, Nancy, her mother, didn't immediately suspect anything because she assumed Gina had decided to walk home, which she had. And she would often arrive a little later because she would spend some time talking to friends or they would stop at the corner store or something like that. However, Gina was typically still home by 3:30. And when she still hadn't returned by 4 o'clock, Nancy went down to the corner store and asked around to see if anyone had seen her. They all said no, so she went back home and started calling Gina's friends. And none of them were really able to tell her anything. So she went back down to the corner store, and when she still couldn't find her, she called the police.
Fair.
The officer dispatched was less than reassuring. When shown Gina's picture, he said, "Oh, she's at that age. Don't worry, she's probably just out with a boyfriend."
She's 14.
Like, I get it. You're in a big city. This was the early 2000s. Cleveland was, especially then, like through the 90s and early 2000s, like it was not a great neighborhood. Like, so kids, there were a lot of kids that got into trouble and that were doing drugs and that were, whatever. But like, if a parent tells you,
this isn't like my kid.
Why, like, you're so jaded that you're not going to believe that parent? Like, I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy asked if they would send out an Amber Alert. And the officer said, well, we only do that when we're certain it's an abduction. And she may just be out with friends, breaking rules. Maybe ran away.
Okay, weirdo. That doesn't seem like your call, but whatever.
By 7:30 p.m., just 4 hours after she should have been home, Gina's entire family were doing everything they could to find her. Making calls, driving around town looking, asking anyone they came across if they'd seen her. Even walking through less populated areas like the railroad tracks and empty lots. When the DeJesus community heard that she was missing, many of them joined in the search as well. The next afternoon, a detective followed up with the family to see if Gina had been found. So at that point, a report was filed, but it was put in the pile of let's have a detective just follow up within 24 hours to see if the kid came back home. They're not looking.
Right. Which is so dumb, but...
She took Nancy's statement, and truly, luckily, that detective believed this was indeed a kidnapping. She believed it so much that when she went back to the department and spoke to her immediate ranking officer, he brushed it off.
Mm-hmm.
Still, she went over his head and asked for it to be assigned to another detective for investigation.
Well, I'm glad.
The detective working on Amanda's case was immediately gutted when he was told about Gina's disappearance.
Oh, he just knew.
He knew. It's around the same area. They're kind of close in age.
Yeah, Gina was 16, almost 17.
Amanda was 16, turning 17. Gina was 14, but she kind of looked a little older than she was.
Mm-hmm.
I would say she's just one of those people that naturally looks a little older than she was. Yeah, so he took it seriously. He called the FBI agents who were assisting, and they all agreed this is suspicious.
Yeah.
They couldn't say for sure that it was the same perpetrator, but they definitely knew it was a good possibility. The media interviewed Nancy and Felix, and the search grew bigger. And the couple even connected with Luana, Amanda's mother.
Mm-hmm.
They all did a news segment together. So both of the girls were able to see, oh my gosh, our families are talking now. Even though they had never talked. They didn't know. Nope. They knew once they saw their families on the news. The DeJesus family held a vigil for Gina, which brought the entire community together. Even Ariel Castro.
I knew you were going to say that. And I just want an angry mob to pitchfork him in the guts and then take it out and then pitchfork him in the neck and then take it out and then pitchfork him in the penis and then rip the penis off and then pitchfork him in the eyes. That's what I want the angry mob to do.
I don't blame you. Detectives did learn that Ariel Castro was the last person to see Gina. And so they interviewed her and her mother, Milda. I think Arlene even did a news interview.
That's crazy.
It was crazy.
I mean, do you think he was nervous?
Yes, he was. And you'll find out why later. You'll find out. They used the K9 unit to follow a trail from the payphone, but it literally ended just feet away.
Right, because she got in a car.
Yeah. Now, I know I haven't gone into a great amount of detail on the actual investigations by both the local detectives and FBI. That's mostly for time's sake, because as you can tell, this be a long one. This is a long one. But I just want to make it very clear, especially since what I have said about officers taking the missing persons reports has been so crappy.
Yeah.
I just can't say it enough. They truly did.
Yeah.
Have a better attitude, and they really did do what they could to find these girls. At some point, they were looking in multiple areas of the state.
They had no leads.
Yeah.
They had no way of knowing. I mean, the only connection was Arlene.
Yeah.
And
that's it. That doesn't mean anything. Because Arlene didn't know that her dad was there. And
Arlene didn't live with her dad.
No.
So if they're looking at Arlene's house, they're not looking at her dad's house.
Right. And Ariel's crimes were literally under everyone's noses, but yet so well hidden.
Yeah.
But some of the examples of how close they came to catching him included, like I said, they had canvassed the neighborhood. Multiple family and or friends were on his property and even in his house while he had these women locked up, and they never caught on to anything. The police were even at his house to question him about a complaint that a woman made against him about his treatment of her son on the school bus. They heard loud music playing, but that was it. He always had the music playing, or mostly always somewhere within the house.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, not only drown out any noise that the women made, but also so that they couldn't hear. He just wore them down. Like you said, it's overstimulation.
Yeah.
Overstimulating. It wears them down mentally. Multiple reasons.
Yeah. It not to mention they're being abused. So that's just insane.
So I want to take just a second to reevaluate the timeline.
Okay. Yeah.
At this point, Ariel has had Michelle in captivity for 2 years, Amanda for 1 year. And as he did with Amanda, he eventually moved Gina upstairs and regularly began raping her about a month or so after he kidnapped her.
Okay.
At first, he kept her apart from the other girls. At some point, though, my best educated guess is that it was sort of after the honeymoon period ended with Gina. He actually put her in the room with Michelle, which was especially horrific because he not only chained them to the wall, but also to each other. Not only did they have to endure being raped regularly, but they had to literally witness each other being raped, and like they can't even get away.
Yeah.
Like they have to stay within like a foot or two. Yeah. Gross. And that's not to mention the absolute stench they must have dealt with. Only being able to bathe about once a week and being forced to use a trash can as a toilet, which I'm sure he didn't clean out very often.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he made them clean it out.
But yeah.
As Gina grew accustomed to rooming with Michelle, Ariel also manipulated all of the women to believe the worst about each other. One of his rules was that they were not to talk about him or their relationship with him. But then he would talk about all of them with each other.
Right.
And he would lie about them to each other, especially about Amanda.
Well, because she's the middle. She's the one who's in between the ages. She would be the glue. So I understand why he would do that.
He told Michelle and Gina that Amanda didn't like them. And his treatment of her seemed special, so they believed him.
Mm-hmm.
That is, until a point at which his daughters were coming to visit him, and he had to have all 3 of them move to the basement.
I say he's going to need those rooms.
Amanda eventually started talking to them, and they quickly figured out his lies. After that, they weren't as quick to believe his lies, but it still was difficult to not get jealous when he clearly gave something more to one over the other.
Right.
I mean, you're talking, these girls are practically starved all the time.
Yeah.
He maybe feeds them once a day. And some days nothing if he's mad at them or just forgot or who knows. The sad thing is, I don't know that he ever favored Michelle. She seems to have gotten the worst treatment by far.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to have phases with Gina and Amanda where he favored one over the other. In the long run, though, Amanda seemed to often have privileges that the other 2 didn't. And it was likely because in 2006, she got pregnant. And they, but especially Michelle, was determined to help her. Having been pregnant by Ariel 5 times herself and forced to miscarry or terminate.
That's insane.
And I want to be very clear. He didn't take her somewhere to have a medical abortion. He terminated them using various sharp instruments, which ultimately caused permanent damage to her uterus and almost ended her life.
That's horrific, not to mention the things that your body goes through hormonally.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the process of being tortured regularly. Like, that's horrific.
Michelle's attitude on things is just kind of unbelievable. She did not wish any of that upon Amanda or Gina.
Mm-hmm.
So she helped convince him to let Amanda keep the baby. And she also may have known that Amanda couldn't take such trauma after it was discovered on the news that Luana had just died the month before Amanda found out she was pregnant.
My God.
Luana may not have been in the best of health even before. She seemed like she was a heavy smoker and such. So, and she was a little bit overweight and, you know, whatever. So I don't know what her health was like before Amanda got taken. It may not have been the best, but the consensus pretty much says that after Amanda was taken, it just literally wrecked her.
Yeah.
And the stress of everything took its toll on her. And she had made fighting to find Amanda practically a full-time job. Not only searching nonstop and doing things locally, but she made every TV appearance she possibly could. Normally her TV appearances were a point of hope for Amanda, which was usually local news, but also like they had done a America's Most Wanted, even though they didn't know who the perpetrator was.
Mm-hmm.
They got her. Actually, both families did that, I believe. And Amanda says that her and her mom used to watch the Montel Williams show together. And so she had been hoping that her mom would be able to get on Montel Williams and see psychic Sylvia Brown, because Amanda was convinced Sylvia Brown will tell her that I'm still alive and that will give her hope. And like, that'll just make her feel better.
Right.
You know, well, Luana did get on Montel Williams and she was desperately hoping to hear Sylvia Brown tell her, your daughter's still alive, keep looking, possibly even give some sort of detail that would like help. Ironically, she instead told her that Amanda was dead and she needed to let her go. Meanwhile, Amanda sat and watched on a TV just miles from home. Yeah.
I can't process that. I can't process that.
Yeah. So no matter how you feel about psychics, like, yes, people make mistakes or whatever. My feeling about Sylvia Brown was like, I didn't think she was a total fraud, but I definitely felt like she exploited herself for profit.
Also, I'm not saying, lie, but I am saying maybe don't tell the mom that the daughter said. Maybe be like, I can't get a read.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that that's technically lying, but first of all, you were wrong. Second of all, maybe don't
well,
say
like,
that.
Did you get a read? Because you're wrong.
Obviously not.
So.
Right. So.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So in March of 2006, Luana succumbed to whatever illness had come up. They don't really say. And she passed away, having never found her daughter.
It's horrible.
The month later, in April of 2006, Amanda realizes she's pregnant. Michelle helped convince Ariel to let her keep the baby. And on December 25th, 2006, a baby girl that they named Jocelyn was born.
And Michelle has delivered a baby before.
Yes, and Michelle had helped deliver a baby before. So Ariel told Michelle, if that baby dies, I'm going to kill you. Like, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to kill you. So Michelle was like...
Well, I'm assuming she hasn't been taking prenatals, Mr. Castro.
Probably not. Yeah. Ariel continued to insist, though. Like, he let her deliver the baby. But he kept saying, you can't keep the baby. But at the same time, he never did anything to take her away. So it was just constant mind games.
Yeah.
Amanda was having difficulty breastfeeding, which is no surprise given the conditions.
Right. Do you know how hungry a person who breastfeeds is?
Yeah. And hydrated. You have to say, oh, God. Yeah, I've breastfed twins, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I know how bad it is. Yeah, so when that happened, she asked him, like, please, will you go get some formula for the baby? And he refused and said, no, maybe it's best if the baby just starved to death.
Again, with the pitchforks. I can't say enough how much I wish they had a pitchfork.
Yeah.
So, we should have more pitchforks in general.
In general.
Yeah.
Amanda was determined to keep her baby, and all the girls agreed that things got actually slightly better after Jocelyn was born. Ariel was slightly more humane after the birth, but definitely continued his sadistic psychological abuse to keep them in line. He placed mirrors strategically throughout the house so he could see their every move, even when he was in a different room from them. He would purposely leave doors open or a chain undone and lie in wait to see if they would try to escape. He would use food and nice gifts as rewards or punishment, which fueled the jealousy thing. He certainly seemed to care about Jocelyn's impression of him, though, once she grew. He would take her for fun outings, shopping, to the park, to McDonald's, even around other people. The neighbors, including Charles Ramsey, the one that had been asking the questions, saw him pulling Jocelyn around in a wagon or playing with her in the front yard, and they just all assumed it was his granddaughter. But when anyone would ask him, he would say, oh, she's my girlfriend's daughter.
Although nobody's seeing a girlfriend.
Yeah. Years went by with Ariel living a double life, the 3 women living in captivity, and Jocelyn too young to realize none of this is normal or okay. When Jocelyn became old enough to start asking questions, Ariel took at least Amanda's chains off, but possibly, I think, everyone's chains off. Amanda worked really hard to make life as normal as possible for Jocelyn. When Jocelyn turned 5, Amanda researched what she would be learning at school and kind of turned their room into a makeshift classroom, doing her best to teach her so she wouldn't be behind should they ever get out. Michelle and Gina also came to love Jocelyn and did what they could to create some normalcy for her. Neither Amanda's sister nor the DeJesus family ever gave up looking for them, but nothing ever came to light. Many people in the community thought that they all had to be dead, and there were still false tips and claims coming in, including one from an inmate who claimed he killed Amanda and buried her body in a vacant lot just 2 blocks from Ariel Castro's house.
Oh my gosh. Again, it's all so close together.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
Then on May 6th, 2013, so we're at 11 years for Michelle, over 10 years for Amanda, and 9 years for Gina.
I can't. I can't. That's so much time.
6-year-old Jocelyn delivered an opportunity when she went downstairs to look for Ariel and returned, telling Amanda, I can't find Daddy and his car is gone. Ariel had left the house for the first time in a decade, or over a decade, without locking the bedroom doors.
He got so cocky, he thought he could just, leave.
Uh-huh. Amanda decided that was it and tiptoed downstairs to realize Jocelyn's right. His car's gone. She managed to get the main front door open to find that the screen door was padlocked. But she was able to open it just enough to get an arm through, so she began waving and screaming for help, begging the neighbors to help them. Several neighbors literally stood in their yards staring at her and doing nothing. Charles Ramsey.
I was going to say, where's my boy?
Yeah. Charles Ramsey had just gotten home with his Big Mac meal.
First of all, the man just wants to eat his Big Mac, and now he's got to go be a hero because he's been calling this for 10 years.
He did.
He said, why'd you board up those windows? And now he's like, I can't even eat my Big Mac because I got to go save her life.
Yeah, he did. In his news interview, it was fantastic. He's like, I just got my burger. And my burger was fresh, and I thought, I want to eat my burger.
But obviously, this is more important. I'm sorry for making jokes. If I literally don't, I'll die. I have to.
That part was funny. I mean, that part, just him saying that was like,
I just got my burger.
I just got my burger.
My burger was fresh.
He sat down on his porch to eat, and he hears the banging on the door. And then he looks across the street and sees neighbors standing and staring at Ariel's house.
He said, I knew I never trusted that guy.
Yeah. So he walked over to the porch where he saw Amanda, and she's banging and saying, let me out. I'm trying to get out. And he's confused. So he was like, well, then come out. Just like open the door. And she's like, no, he has the door padlocked. I can't get out. And Charles was reluctant because, he'd already been like warned, mind your business and like whatever. So he was reluctant, but he knew like, I have to help this girl. So he tried opening the door, couldn't get it open. So he just started kicking the bottle panel until it was loose enough.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, you need to kick it out the rest of the way because it needs to come out instead of in. And she did, and she crawled out, and then once she was outside, she told him who she was. She was like, I'm Amanda Berry, and I was kidnapped like 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden, Jocelyn crawls out and is crying for daddy. And he's like, whoa, this is the girl that I've seen him with. Like, this is, like, I just property damaged his house, and this is like, what's going on? But he's like, so we got, call the cops. And so he like calls 911, and he's like, this girl. And then he's like, here, I'm just going to hand the phone to her.
Right. And you're like, I don't know what's going on, but she says her name is Amanda. Here you go. I want the burger.
He's like, I'm just trying to help. So she gets on the phone and, of course, is like, I'm Amanda Berry. I was kidnapped 10 years ago. I'm out. I'm free. Like, I need you to send police right away. And, of course, they're like, well, once we have a car available. She's like, no, he could come back
now.
Like, he could be back. They need to get here. So they dispatch. Gina and Michelle talked about following her, like, got really, like, pumped up initially. And then they got scared.
Yeah.
And they stayed put. And then when they heard all the banging and stuff, they turned the radio up because they thought that he came back and that she got caught.
Yeah.
And so they got really scared. So they just stayed in the room. The officers that first responded immediately recognized Amanda and radioed dispatch saying, quote, this might be for real. Like, this, I think is her.
We did, like, it's happening.
Yeah. And Amanda immediately told them.
I have goosebumps all over my body.
Yeah.
All over my body.
Amanda immediately told them there were 2 more women inside. And so officers, used what they had to bust the door down or open. And basically, like, the whole door came off. And then they started up the stairs. But they did so cautiously because they don't know what they're walking into. Gina and Michelle were even more scared and thinking that it was Ariel coming up the stairs. So they shut the door as if he can't get in anyway. But they shut the door because they're thinking, well, we won't get beat if we stay put and we've shut the door. And he just thinks like,
we just followed the rules.
You did good. You followed the rules, right? But then the officers start yelling, Cleveland police. And they finally heard them over the radio. As the police officers were nearing the bedroom door, Michelle peeked out and saw the officer's badge. And Michelle's very little. I mentioned that she's under, I think she's only like 4'10".
Wow,
like she's super
little.
short. She's super short. And little Michelle saw the badge and immediately ran out of the room and like jumped into his arms and hugged him and said, my name's Michelle Knight. I've been here almost 12 years. Never let me go.
I hope he did it. I hope he is still holding her.
Gina stayed in the bedroom because she was scared it was a setup. She thought maybe Ariel, because he had left the doors unlocked, she thought, I bet he got people to dress up as cops. And this is a setup.
A valid thought.
I probably would think the same thing.
You definitely would.
I would. Eventually, though, when she heard them talking to Michelle, she stepped out, and the male officer that Michelle had jumped into his arms, he still, years later when being interviewed, he just bawled because he was one of the officers looking for Gina. And he immediately she even said he looked like he saw a ghost.
Yeah.
And then he knew it was her, but he had to confirm. And so he asked her name, and she said, Gina DeJesus. And he's like, we've been looking for you for a long time.
I have goosebumps again.
I know.
They're everywhere.
The women and Jocelyn were, of course, transported to the hospital, and the cops were on the hunt for Ariel. The news broke almost immediately, though, and the crime scene was chaotic. People lined up in the streets looking, trying to see what's going on.
And if you think nobody would do that now, yes, they would. And they absolutely have.
I mean, this was in 2013. This wasn't that long ago.
That's insane.
Okay. So they're watching as officers are searching the house and collecting evidence. The crowds were cheering and celebrating that the girls were found alive, though.
Yes.
They weren't just there being nosy. They were there yes. And also, what the hell? This dude had these girls in our neighborhood. What is happening?
I'd have to move, I think. I don't think I could live there.
Right? Meanwhile, patrol officers are out watching for Ariel. And sure enough, he's spotted on a main road just 3 blocks from his house. And he pulled into a McDonald's.
I was going to say, where was he going?
I don't know.
He just left.
The officer pulled in behind him and arrested him for the suspicion of kidnapping. Not surprisingly, Ariel refused to talk.
But we just found 3 girls and a baby. Well,
a 6-year-old,
baby in your house.
A 6-year-old with no social security number or documentation of any kind.
Right. Yeah. Never seen a doctor.
Yes, exactly. So back at the hospital, Amanda and Gina were reunited with their families and got released fairly quickly to go home. They were underweight, and had minor health concerns, but generally speaking, they were okay now that they can live normal lives. Well, as normal as you can after this.
They
were physically okay.
However.
Sorry. This part's going to be hard for me to get out. Sadly, though, no one came looking for Michelle. And she was also in the worst physical condition. She had been suffering from an infection for so long, and antibiotics were not helping. They didn't believe she was going to survive.
Yeah.
They thought she had days to live.
Right.
She says she didn't let the prognosis get her down because she was so happy to be free. She didn't even care. If I die in this hospital, at least I died free.
Yeah.
That happiness may have been what kept her going because she did actually survive. During the search of the house, police found a letter written by Ariel in 2004, just days after he kidnapped Gina. That's why I say, when you said, what is he getting nervous? Isn't he nervous?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he started to get nervous because that's when he wrote this letter.
Okay.
And the letter was basically a in case I get caught letter. I'm going to confess, if you will, but I'm going to tell you all the million reasons why I've done this. In it, he talked about how he was sexually abused as a kid, developed a sex addiction. He didn't mean to do it, blah, blah, blah. When they tried to question him again, detectives used a different tactic. Instead of asking him direct questions, like they normally do, they took copies of the statements from everybody and even his own letter he wrote. And they said, hey, how about you just clear some of this stuff up? Let's go over it paragraph by paragraph, and you clear up any mistakes or, things from your perspective. His arrogance reared its ugly head, and he went through the entire thing without asking for an attorney.
Oh my gosh.
He continuously minimized everything, claiming he didn't rape them. He just had a way of convincing them to have sex, so it was consensual. And they were better off with him because their home lives were so bad. When it came to Michelle's pregnancies, he told detectives it was a mutual decision. As much as he was one step ahead of the women and investigators for years, he missed one very important piece of incriminating evidence. He had apparently never checked Amanda's journals, and she documented
everything.
Good job. Every rape, every beating, every time he moved them, every conversation.
Wow.
This was an integral part of the investigation and helped bring charges of 977 counts against him.
How many journals did she go through? I'm so curious.
When she ran out, I think he bought her at least one, but possibly some more journals. And in between, she would write on anything she could get. So he'd bring them fast food all the time. Mm-hmm. She would take the bags and open them up and write on the back side of the bags. And then she would just tuck stuff away and hide it.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't out. I mean, he could have easily found it, but he didn't bother looking.
Wow.
The 977 counts included hundreds of counts of kidnapping, because every single time you untie somebody and chain them back up, it's a count of kidnapping. Hundreds of counts of rape, and at least 2 counts of aggravated murder. Which you might be like, what is that about? It was not said in my sources, it was implied. I believe the murder charges were because a couple of Michelle's pregnancies were actually late terminations.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically aborted these babies outside of the law that the law allows. He initially pleaded not guilty, but quickly changed his tune and agreed to a plea deal. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years.
Right.
On August 1st, 2013. He gave a statement at the hearing where he said, quote, "I am not a violent predator. I'm not a monster. I'm a normal person. These allegations about being forceful on them, that is totally wrong, because there was times that they would even ask me for sex."
Okay. No. No. And again, may I suggest? No.
He went on to say, "As God is my witness, I never beat these women like they're trying to say that I did. I never tortured them. I am truly sorry to the DeJesus family, Amanda and Michelle. You guys know all the harmony that went on in that home."
Again, pitchfork.
What?
Pitchfork.
What?
Up the butthole.
Michelle was the only one of the women who gave a statement at the hearing. One of the best parts, in my opinion, was when she said she spent 11 years in hell, and now his hell was just beginning.
Snaps, girl.
When asked where she found the strength to do it, she said she had to let him know he no longer had control over her, nor does he define who she is.
She is.
Now I have goosebumps.
I know.
Michelle is incredible. I mean, all of them are incredible for how, and I'll discuss that. I'll get there. It's just mind blown.
I mean, these may be some of the most epic survivors that we've talked about.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ariel's hell on earth was short-lived. Just 1 month and 1 day after that hearing, he was found hanging in his cell.
Are you effing kidding me?
I am not.
I want to throw something. I want
I know,
violence.
which is why, like, my next note, I just move on. Because I'm like, I don't even want to talk about this.
I want to break something.
Yep. These women, you held them captive for a decade. And you couldn't handle being in jail for a few months? Like, you were in there before the hearing, and then he got busted in May. He was in there from May,
June, July
to August.
I am infuriated.
Yep.
I hope he's getting pitchforked in hell.
Yes. On August 7th, 2013, the city tore down the House of Horrors on Seymour Avenue, which all 3 women and the community were grateful for. I believe Michelle attended that as well, and she did like a balloon release and stuff.
Good. I mean, seriously, part of them died in there.
Yeah.
You know, you can't.
Well, for God's sakes, Gina was 14. Like, she still had childhood left.
Yeah.
And she didn't get out till she was like 23.
I mean, yeah.
All 3 women worked very hard to catch up on life. And because they were younger when taken, as I just said, Amanda and Gina had a lot of major milestones that they needed or wanted to catch up on, like graduating high school, which they did together.
Aw.
They also wrote,
I mean, they're so trauma bonded. Like, literally nobody but the 3 of them can understand what they went through.
True. Definitely, especially Gina and Amanda.
Yeah.
I think so more so. Also, those 2 also wrote a book together, which is one of my major sources, one of my top 3 sources for this episode. And it is listed in the show notes if you're interested, because they give a full firsthand account of everything. And there's a lot more in there about the investigation and what the families went through, etc. So I definitely recommend it as a read. Michelle chose to go her own way, though, because she said that, you know, they each had their own struggles after getting free. And she said being around each other for her, like, just brought up a lot of memories.
For sure.
She has actually written 2 books. One, a memoir about her time in captivity called Finding Me, A Decade of Darkness, A Life Reclaimed. And one more recent book about her healing called Life After Darkness. She's also has a new name. Like, her books say Michelle Knight, but her newest book says Michelle Knight, and then real small at the bottom, I think her new name is like Lily Rose something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure she probably goes into like why she changed her name. I've heard of trauma victims doing that. They kind of want to detach. But of course, if she just uses Lily, nobody's going to know that it's her. So,
so she uses her.
Yeah. Now, I honestly ran out of time to read Michelle's books, but I do personally plan on trying to read them, and will update everybody if I come across like anything else that was super interesting about the case or like a differing perspective. I guess lastly want to say, as you did, how in awe I am of how well all 3 of them have handled survivorship. But I am especially blown away by Michelle's outlook and determination to fight for life when so many of us under her circumstances would have like lost our will to live.
Yeah.
If we had been in her shoes, feeling like nobody's looking for me. These girls, I mean, because she saw it on the news too. She would see that their families
were looking
are looking. And to me, it's such a testament of her mindset of how she survived the infection, even when doctors were like, she's not going to survive. I just think all of them are incredible, but I was especially blown away by Michelle's tenacity.
It's insane. I mean, coming together to help, you know, Amanda with Jocelyn, and that's insane.
Yeah. So they all have various things that they've done to like advocate or speak. I know Amanda Berry for a little while was doing like a little segment on a news channel. I think on the same news channel that worked closest with her mother, of like she was spotlighting missing children's cases and stuff. I don't know if she's still doing that, but yeah, as far as I can tell, they're all three doing as well as survivors can do. Jocelyn has grown up and is now at least a teenager, like 16,
she was
17.
6 in 2013, so.
Yeah, so she's grown up. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a wild, wild story. I thank Amber again for asking for it. It is absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm so glad that they survived and are doing as well as they are.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you did a great job covering that. I mean, that's a lot of content and information to filter through, and you did an amazing job. So thank you very much for putting that together for us.
Thank you for hanging in there.
There was never a point where I was bored. I'm on the edge of my seat the entire time. So even though it was long, it was a great episode.
Okay, good. Because there, of course, is a lot more like detailed specific events of abuse and this and that we could get into, but you get the idea of what this was like. You get the idea of how he treated them.
No, I thought
how horrible it was.
You did a great job.
And just imagine that for 10 years and
I don't want to.
Awful. Yeah.
Wow.
So
if you made it through, thank you very, very, very much for sticking it out.
Thank you so much for listening and hanging in there. And if you'd like to participate on our social medias for a Sunday shout out, go ahead and leave us a yellow heart emoji. Yellow ribbons are the ones for, missing persons, children, etc. So we're going to keep that simple and just say a yellow heart. And of course, feel free to comment. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be like, WTF, this was crazy.
Yes.
Have at it. We'd love to hear from you, hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. And until next week, we'll have our Patreon selected case comes out next week.
Yes. So I'm excited.
Honestly, we'll talk about it at the beginning of the episode. I'm excited too.
All right.
John list next week. We'll talk to you guys then.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Burden of Proof Pod and email us at burdenofproofpod@gmail.com.